Welcome back, everybody. Today's tutorial, we're going to be taking this piece of footage, adding a motion track to it, creating a 3D camera. We're going to add some 3D text elements along with some 3D objects, and then we're going to add a depth of field effect just to tie everything into this scene. Thank you guys for coming back. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back, everybody. Today, instead of clicking the new composition icon, let's go ahead and double click in the project panel, or you can hit Command I to import. We're going to navigate to our footage. In my case, I called it Goblin Valley 2. And what this is just a clip of me and my family down in Goblin Valley a couple years ago. So I'm going to click and drag that to the new composition layer. And this, you can see here, this is the entire clip. Now, it's about 14 seconds long. But I think I want to end with her taking the picture here. So I want to end at about 11 seconds. So I'm just going to hit Option, close bracket. That's going to trim it there. And then for the beginning, I think I want to start it right about 2 seconds. So I'm going to hit Option, open bracket on my keyboard, and that's going to trim it to my playhead. Let's drag that all the way over to the beginning, and then do just the open bracket by itself. And that's going to move this layer all the way to my playhead. Let's hit O for out. That's going to take me to the end of the layer. And then I'm going to hit N, and that's going to trim my work area down to this. So now every time I preview, I'm only previewing this area and nothing else. And that's going to speed up the render time. Right click on that layer, on the footage layer, and then go down to track and stabilize and track camera. The camera tracker is going to go through and analyze every frame of the footage. And so we want to trim this down as much as we can. So that way it's not having to scan extra frames that we're not going to need. It's just going to speed things up for your computer. Take a look over here in the top left. It's going to go through and analyze every frame of that clip. So it'll give you an estimated time and what the progress is. Go ahead and click on your footage layer, go up to 3D camera, select that. Now you see that its average error is 1.38 pixels. That's actually pretty good. You want to be at about 1 pixel or lower, and that's going to give you a really solid track, so that way whatever you place on here is not going to slide around. Now you'll notice that there's a bunch of little X's on here, and if I hover over them, it gives me a target. Actually, hold on. Before we go any farther, let's try change this over to a variable zoom. Now you'll see that the average error goes down to 1.13. And then let's try a typical, and let's see if we can get this average to drop down. Drop down a little bit more. Mostly flat scene. Let's see what that does. 1.19, and then a tripod pan. Whoa, that goes way up there to 8.26. So it looks like the best case scenario here is going to be the typical under variable zoom. So you'll see that it's 1.11 pixels. And that's going to give us our best track. All right, so now I want to make sure that I'm grabbing enough of these markers to give ourselves a really solid foundation here. So if you're having a hard time seeing some of these markers, like there's a few up here that I don't even see, you can change the target size and you can change the track point size. So changing that will make those bigger so you can see them, and then the target size will make that bigger so you can see the target. Now that you have this tracked, let's go ahead and select some points here. Let's actually grab something like that, and then right click on the target and go down to create solid and camera. Now what this is going to do is going to put a solid down and create a camera. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and unselect. Let's go back to the beginning of the timeline, press the space bar to preview that, and we'll see how it comes in. And you can see that that solid is staying pretty put. That looks great. Okay, let's go ahead and hit Command T for our text tool. I'm going to double click my text to select the text, and then I'm going to change the font. If you scroll all the way up, you'll notice that it gives you this line here. All of these are your recent fonts, and then from that line down, that's going to give you your fonts in alphabetical order. So I know that I've used one of these fonts here recently. Maybe not that one. I'm going to change that over to steelfish. And then we're going to change that over to extra bold. Select that layer and then enable the 3D function. And you'll see that it puts it over there. So I want to select the track solid, hit P for position, copy that position, go down to your text layer, hit P for position again, and then select the position and paste that position in there. And that's going to put exactly where that solid is. Now it's a little small, so let's go ahead and angle that up just a little bit. It might be a little too big, so let's just take it down to 600. Let's copy and paste that layer. And then I'm going to bump up that layer. Select V on your keyboard for the selection tool, or you can select it from your toolbar. And I'm just going to move this over like so. And then I'm going to double click on this layer and I'm going to say Valley. So now when we go back to the beginning of the playhead, that appears out of nowhere. And then we see Goblin Valley. And that looks pretty cool because I like what's happening. I like that the text is hiding the people on the horizon, and I like that they're being revealed. So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm actually going to scoot them over just a little bit because I do want them. Select both of those, hit V for the selection tool, and then I'm going to scoot those both over just a little bit, move them up a little bit, and we're going to place them there, but I'm going to rotate this over ever so slightly. And let's take a look and see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks great. Let's go ahead and hide this track solid. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and bring some 3D elements in just to make this a little funner. Obviously, you can create your own 3D elements, or you can go online. There's a website called Sketchfab that you can go to, and you can download free models, or you can buy 3D models. It's up to you, whatever you want to use. But the ones I happened to find were some Triceratop ones. So let me go ahead and bring those in. Now that I have my 3D elements in here, I'm just going to click and drag one of those into my timeline. Go ahead and click OK. And then under the track solid, I'm going to hit P for position. I'm going to copy the position. And then I'm going to go to my 3D element, hit P for position, and I'm going to paste that. And then I'm going to hit S for scale. I'm going to enlarge that just a little bit. And then I'm going to go to A for anchor point. And I want to put this over here. And then I'm going to hit R for rotation. And under orientation, I want to rotate this around just a little bit. And let's take a look and see what that looks like. That looks great. Now that skull isn't actually supposed to look like it's sitting on the ground, but because it's so big, it does look like that. So I'm going to take the scale down and just scale it down like so. Hit A for anchor tool, and I'm just going to bump this up again just a little bit like so. All right, now that we have our title in there, what I want to do is add another 3D element. So I'm going to go back to my footage under the effects. Back to my footage. Under the effects, I want to select that 3D camera tracker, and I want to put my second 3D element probably up on this hill a little bit. Okay, so right click on that, and instead of create solid and camera, because we already have a camera in here, I'm just going to create another solid. And then go back to the beginning of the playhead. I'm going to play that just to see if our target is locked into place, and it looks like it is. So let's go ahead and go back to our project panel here. I'm going to bring in our second 3D element, and then our track solid. I'm going to hit P for position, copy that position. And then I'm going to go to our 3D element, which is our Triceratops, and then hit P for position. And then I'm going to paste that. And then I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm going to scale that up just a little bit. And let's go with that. So what I'm noticing here is that my text is on here a little bit too long. So I'm going to grab my text. I'm going to make those a little bit smaller. So I'm going to hit A for anchor point, and I'm going to bring those towards the camera just a little bit, like that. And then I'm going to hit S for scale, and then I'm going to take these down just a little bit. So I'm going to make them 500. And I don't know why I did that, but let's try 500 again. All right. So I'm going to make them 500. And then I'm going to select this one, hit A for anchor point, and I want to bring that down just ever so slightly. That looks pretty good. And let's go back to fit, and let's play this just to see what it looks like. You know what? That Triceratops skeleton, I think he's just a little too hidden by that whole text. So I think I'm just going to get rid of him. Yeah, that Triceratops skeleton, it's not doing it for me. So I'm just going to hide him. And then this is what we end up with. Goblin Valley. That looks great. Beautiful. I like the reveal there of the people on the horizon behind the text. That's gonna be awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and go to our text layer. Let's select the goblin text layer. Actually, I'm just gonna get rid of this Triceratops model just to keep it organized. So we have our camera tracker. I'm just gonna bump this up just so we see that our two text layers and our 3D layer. And then with the text layer selected, I'm going to toggle this down under geometry options. I'm just going to extrude this. Let's give it a little depth here, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to change the bevel style to concave, and I'm going to add some here so we can actually see it. So it's going to be about 6. Let's just go for a nice even number. 100 and 180, just to give it some nice round numbers that we can duplicate on this valley one. So go ahead and toggle the arrow down, geometry options, and then we called this 6, 100, and 180. And then I believe we did this angular. Oh, no, we did concave. Now this goblin in the valley, it looks like it's on the ground. So I'm just going to bump this up just a little bit just to make it feel like it's actually floating. Now I'm going to select my 2 text layers, and then I'm also going to select my 3D layer, and I'm going to hit Command Shift C to pre-compose. I'm going to move all the attributes into the new composition, and then composition duration to the span. Yes, click OK. You know what I didn't do is I didn't bring my camera in there with it. So I'm going to undo all that. Let's go ahead and grab our 3 elements here, our Goblin Valley text, the Triceratops, and we also want to grab the 3D camera. And then I'm going to hit Command Shift C to pre-compose. We'll call this title. And then we want to move all attributes into the new composition and then click OK. So the reason I pre-compose that is because I want to color match this to the background just a little bit more. Like you can tell that yellow is not quite the same yellow that's in here. So I just want to mess with that just a little bit. So let's go ahead and if you do Command Option Y, this will give you a new adjustment layer. And we're only looking at the text. Now this is going to affect everything, but we're going to copy this. layer, and then we're going to put it inside the composition, so it's only affecting the 3D elements in the scene. But let's go ahead and make this match. So let's go ahead and look for a curves. Throw that on there. And then let's make this a little bit darker. Yeah, something like that. With that adjustment layer still selected, let's go ahead and look for a Lumetri color. Let's drop that on there. And then under base, let's go to our color wheels. And let's give this a little bit more red here in the midtones. Something like that. Select the adjustment layer, cut it, double click on your title composition, go up to the top and paste that. So now when we go back to our Goblin Valley, you can see that it takes on a little bit more shading of this environment. Just to add a little bit more realism, I want to add some depth of field to this shot. So that way what's in the background is a little bit blurred until we draw our focus to it, and then that's going to become focused. And then this in the foreground is going to become out of focus. So we'll start with the title. Let's go ahead and add a Gaussian blur. So go to your effects panel, search for Gaussian blur, click and drag that onto the layer there. So we want this to be blurry, blurry, blurry until there. That's where it's going to become in focus. So let's go ahead and activate our keyframes for blurriness. Let's go back a few frames, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a blur to it. Maybe that's a little much. Let's go 15. Let's try 5. I'm going to hit U to bring up our keyframes, and then we want to keep this in focus. So copy and paste that frame till about 5 seconds, and then after the 5 seconds, we want that to become extra blurry. So let's go ahead and go back up to 25. Now, because this is a fake shot and we're doing fake camera work here, that's why we have to blur things out with keyframes. So let's go ahead and let's duplicate this layer. And I'm going to add a Gaussian blur. We don't need the camera tracker for this duplicate. And then I'm going to add this. I'm going to have this go up to 25. So what I want to do is add a mask. I'm going to simulate the focus of the lens with a Gaussian blur effect. And the way I'm going to do that is with a mask. Hit G for your pen tool. And then I'm going to draw out a mask like so. Now you want to make sure that this mask goes all the way past the edge, because we're going to feather this quite a bit. So go ahead and hit F for feather. And then we're going to make this, let's make the feather about 350, and then change that over to subtract. So now you can see that the area of focus is going to be right here, right where the valley's at. We can reference our keyframes on our title layer just to give us a reference of when we want this to be in focus. So let's go ahead and hit a keyframe. Oh, not for the mask feather, but hit M for mask path. And we want to set a keyframe there. And then we also want to set a keyframe here. So go ahead and hit a keyframe. And then we want to take this over here. And then we're going to bump this up, bump that up, bump this down, and bump this down. So what this is going to do is that it's going to animate this mask. So that way, that focus is going to get drawn into the title, stay with the title, and then go about here So we want to copy and paste that keyframe. And then we're going to go to the end. And we want the focus to be our hikers here in the background. And because this is a little bit of a slope here, I'm going to make this a little bit angled. So it has a little bit more of that effect. Under the F for mask feather, I'm going to set the keyframe there. And then I'm going to go forward a little bit, and then I'm going to bump this up to about, let's go 800. And let's take a look. That looks great. Let's hit U for our keyframes, and then just select all of those and hit F9. Hit F9 for easy ease. And then we'll also do that to our blurriness keyframes on our title. Let's take a look here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You can see how we're able to fake some of that. I'm just going to give this motion blur just so when this title moves, it gives a little bit of blurriness. And then I'm also going to go into this and activate the motion blur for all three of those layers. And that layer as well. Let's go back to our Goblin Valley, and then let's take a look here. I might actually have to put a force motion blur on here. Let's take a look. I think that blur was happening a little late, so I just moved this keyframe down in the timeline just to make it time with this blur here on the title. That looks much better. Okay, let's go ahead and deselect everything just so we can see what's going on here. Hit space bar to preview that animation. One last thing we want to try to add is some letterboxing or cinema bars. So let's go ahead and give that a try and see what it looks like. So I'm just going to hit Command Y for a new solid, and then I'm going to make this black. Hit OK. I'm going to select the rectangle tool from my toolbar, and I'm going to draw a triangle or a rectangle here, not a triangle. Oh boy. And then under mask, I'm going to go to subtract. This makes it look just a little bit more cinematic. I want to try adding this solid back behind my title. And I wonder what this looks like here. Oh, that looks pretty cool. And that just gives it a little bit of a cool effect. It's almost like you're going to a 3D movie. Anyway, so if you like it or not, I mean, you could always put those cinema bars on top of everything just to make it look more like a regular movie. But it still adds that cinematic factor to it. And you can take a look here. This is what it looks like with the cinema bars on top of everything. And then this is what it looks like when we drag that layer down and give it a cool 3D effect. Last thing we want to do, and I know I always say the one last thing, but really one last thing. As I'm looking at this, I think because this is so sharp, it looks a little out of place. So I'm going to add a little bit motion blur to the title just to make it seem even more believable. Then, I mean, it's pretty believable as a 3D floating Triceratops skull in the middle of the desert. But if you can believe that, you should, because it's pretty believable. So let's go into our title composition here. Double click on your title composition. With the adjustment layer selected, let's go ahead and look for the force motion blur. And then let's go ahead and drop that on there. The motion blur samples, we're going to change that over to 16. Whoa, what just happened? We're going to change that over to 16. And then shutter angle, we're going to go with 500. And then shutter phase, we're going to go to 150. And then you're going to see here, once it's done rendering, what that motion blur is going to do to the entire scene. There we go. So you can see how much motion blur that's adding. And now that we go back to our main composition, you'll notice that we have quite a bit of motion blur on the title, but now our background is pretty defined. So we're going to also do a force motion blur on our background layer here. And I'm just going to take this up to 16. Let's do 350 and then 150 for the shutter phase. So now, oh, there we go. Now you see that that is being blurred as well. And this might be too much. Let me just, let's go ahead and take this back down to 200. And then under shutter phase, let's take this down to 75. Let's take a look here and see what that looks like. All right, let's go ahead and set a keyframe here for 150 under the shutter phase. And then here, we're going to take it back down to 60. And then here, we're going to take this down to 60 as well. Okay, let's go ahead and render that out, and we'll take a look at what we have. Unfortunately, this is this is really intensive on your computer, so you're not going to be able to preview it. You're unfortunately going to have to render this out to actually see what's going on here. But we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll take a look. Okay, and there you go, guys. Just to recap real quick, what we did is we started out with a piece of footage that we motion tracked. We added a 3D camera as well as a solid. We added some 3D text, and then we added a 3D element. We added that skull, that Triceratops skull. We color matched it to make it feel more like it's integrated within the scene. And then we added a fake depth of field blur to the camera, just to make it all a little bit more believable, like that text is actually in the scene. And then that's it. I hope you guys liked today's tutorial. If you do, hit that like button. If you have any questions or any comments, please put that in the comments down below. If you like what you're seeing, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to put out these tutorials every single week. My name is Julio. I'm your motion sidekick, here to help you out on your motion side quest. And until next time, I love you guys and keep on coming back.